the PPSh-41, a submachine gun that became a symbol not only of victory, but of an entire era. Its recognizable 71-round magazine, the characteristic metallic clank of the bolt, and the dense burst of fire, all of this has gone down in history as the sounds of the Red Army's advance. For German soldiers during World War II, the word PPSh sounded almost like a death sentence. The weapon's rate of fire, density of fire, and mass production made it one of the most effective close combat weapons, capable of changing the outcome of a clash in mere seconds. But its legendary status was based on more than just frontline glory. The PPSh-41 was, first and foremost, an engineering solution born under extreme pressure for time, materials, and manpower. In 1941, the USSR faced the need to rapidly arm millions of new recruits, many of whom had neither combat experience nor time for extensive training. A weapon was needed that was simple, technologically advanced, reliable, and yet effective enough to withstand the onslaught of German shock troops. It was precisely to meet these requirements that gunsmith Georgy Shpagin created a design that would later become one of the most widely produced automatic weapons of the 20th century. The PPSh's popularity wasn't limited to the Red Army. German troops confronted with it in close combat often used captured models, converting them to fire the 9-gun 19 Parabellum cartridge, and many Wehrmacht documents explicitly stated the desirability of capturing these submachine guns. This is a unique case, an enemy weapon so effective that it was produced by their own units, sometimes even in preference to German equivalents. But the weapon's legend lies beyond its combat use. The PPSh-41 became part of culture, a symbol of an entire generation of soldiers, from Stalingrad to Berlin. In the chronicles of war, it appears in the hands of infantry, scouts, tank crews, sailors, partisans, and NKVD riflemen. Each episode features the same recognizable form, but the completely different stories of the men who wielded it. Today, we'll examine the PPSh-41 not through the prism of a romanticized legend, but through technical accuracy, actual documentation, and design analysis. How exactly did the PPSh-41 work? Why did it become so widespread and effective? How did it defeat the enemy? How did it influence the further development of automatic weapons? And why, decades later, does this weapon continue to be used in certain hotspots around the world? What we see before us is not just a legend, but a masterpiece of engineering from the time of total war. And to understand how the PPSh-41 became a symbol of the Red Army's might, we need to delve into its mechanics, the history of its creation, and its actual combat experience. The PPSh-41 uses a blowback-operated system. This is the simplest design, but when properly executed, it provides amazing reliability. The bolt is large and massive. When fired, it moves back, compressing the recoil spring, and then, under the force of this spring, returns, chambering the next round. No complex gas systems, a minimum of parts. This is precisely why the PPSh continued to fire even in dusty, freezing conditions and in the absence of maintenance. The bolt weighs significantly more than many other submachine guns of the period, which is necessary to compensate for the high energy of the TT cartridge, 7.62 25mm. This cartridge had a high muzzle velocity up to 480, 500 nm, which exceeded most German 9mm counterparts. Combined with the long barrel, the PPSh produced a very tight trajectory effective at ranges beyond the reach of most submachine guns. One of the PPSh's key features was its extremely high rate of fire, approximately 900 rounds per minute. This was significantly higher than the MP40, Thompson, and most other submachine guns of the time. In close combat, this provided a huge advantage. In situations inside buildings, trenches, or street fighting, Soviet soldiers were effectively able to deluge the enemy with a dense burst before they could even take aim. The PPSh's rate of fire became a serious problem for the Germans. Wehrmacht tactical reports mentioned instances where Soviet assault groups armed with PPShs suppressed firing positions almost instantly. This is precisely why the Germans began mass-producing 71-round drum magazine. It was initially chosen because it was compatible with the PPD magazine, saving time and resources. However, drum magazines had their drawbacks. They required custom fitting to each individual weapon, complicating supply chain. Only by the middle of the war did improved, standardized versions appear, but even these were not ideal. Later, in an attempt to improve practicality, 35-round sector magazines were widely adopted by the front lines. They proved simpler, lighter, more reliable, and allowed soldiers to quickly reload the weapon in combat. At the same time, the firepower remained high, and controllability was significantly improved. The PPSh frame was made from stamped parts welded together, dramatically reducing production time. No one considered plastic or composite components of the era, so the stock and forend were made of wood. The design was literally handed over to workshops piecemeal. One factory stamped the frames, another produced the bolts, and a third handled the stocks. This allowed for production of tens of thousands of units per month. By 1945, the total number of PPSh-41s produced exceeded 6 million units, one of the largest figures for mass-produced weapons in the 20th century. The PPSh saw action in all key sectors of World War II. It was the primary weapon of assault groups in urban combat, indispensable in close combat in forests and rough terrain, and was used by scouts, partisans, tank crews, sappers, and marines. The PPSh proved particularly effective in the Battle of Stalingrad, where urban conditions demanded a high rate of fire and fire density. German reports clearly indicated that at ranges of up to 200 meters, Soviet soldiers with the PPSh enjoyed a significant advantage. Captured PPShs were so valuable that the Germans created an official version, the MP-41R, a conversion of the PPSh chambered for the 9x19 Parabellum cartridge. This involved a new barrel and an adapted magazine. The design itself proved so successful that German soldiers often preferred it to their own MP-40, especially in street fighting. The PPSh became the basis for an entire line of post-war submachine guns. Its design was studied in many countries, from China to Finland. It influenced the development of the PPS, modernized models in China, Korea, Vietnam, and even later models of civilian weapons. This submachine gun became a kind of standard for a mass military system, cheap, simple, but at the same time, extremely effective. The PPSh-41 has long ceased to be just a weapon. It has become a symbol of the country's survival, engineering ingenuity, and extreme efficiency. It is the result of how, under the harshest conditions of war, engineers, workers, and soldiers were able to create a tool that decided the fate of many battles. For German soldiers, the PPSh was a shock-fast, loud, and deadly. For Soviet machine gunners, it was a reliable friend, never failing in mud, snow, ruined buildings, and pouring rain. The history of the PPSh is the history of a weapon that revolutionized close-range combat tactics and became one of the key factors in the Red Army's advantage in urban operations. After the war, the PPSh found itself in demand worldwide. It became not just a weapon of the Red Army, but also a tool of revolutions, partisan movements, and liberation wars. Its mass production, low cost, and consistent reliability made it ideal for countries that needed a weapon with limited resources. It fought in Korea, where North Korean and Chinese units used it against American troops, often stunning them with its sheer density of fire. It fought in Vietnam, where it became a symbol of jungle resistance. It was encountered in Africa, the Middle East, and Latin America. The PPSh became a global phenomenon. Today, 8 decades later, it still appears in footage of modern conflicts. Old warehouses, ancient arsenals, forgotten bases. The PPSh survives as if in defiance of time. It continues to fire in places where modern models should have long ago dominated. It is not just an artifact of the past. It is a working tool, still capable of performing its intended purpose. But most importantly, the PPSh has become a cultural symbol. It's present in films, literature, games, posters, and museums. It's become part of popular memory. Even those unfamiliar with military history know this weapon. It's recognizable by its distinctive silhouette, the shape of its rotary magazine, and its wooden buttstock. The PPSh embodies the masculine, stern, yet reliable weapon of an era when the will of men and the ability of technology to withstand unbearable stress were decisive. And when we speak of legendary weapons of the 20th century, the PPSh-41 inevitably ranks high. Not because it was the most accurate, not because it was the most technologically advanced, but because it was perfectly suited to the war it fought in. It was the weapon of a mass army, the weapon of people arming themselves under the total strain of industry and the front. If you're interested in the stories behind legendary weapons, subscribe to GunLore, like it, and let us know in the comments, which gun should we dissect in the next episode?